Hello, welcome to the April 7th, 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and we will do roll call. Commissioner Applegate, you can just raise your hand. Yes, she is here. Commissioner Blair.
Here.
And Commissioner Howell. Oh, and we'll come back to you. I already messed that part up. Commissioner Stowe. Yes, he is here. Commissioner Weber is here, and Vice Chair Spector is absent for the time being, but hopefully we'll see him soon. So, and I'll go back to Commissioner Howell. So welcome, Commissioner Carrie Howell, to the Parks and Recreation Commission. We're looking forward to working with you and excited about what you have to give as far as input. So we'll get started on our next agenda item, which is consideration of minutes from March 3rd, 2021 meeting. So at this time, do we have any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Pardon me. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, and I have Commissioner Stowe as second, and we have Andrew Weber as the first. So, okay, they all in favor? Aye. Okay, seeing none opposed, they pass as written. And now we'll move to the next agenda item. Actually, I think I skipped over public comment. Pardon me. Today is my brain is all mixed up. Okay, so public comment, and I will let Jeff put up his slide. But at this time, people may address the committee about items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to speak should come forward to state their name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Items raised at this time are generally referred to staff, and if action by the committee is necessary, may be scheduled for a future meeting. And at this time, before we allow public comment, on the slide here, we have the city adopted civility guidelines, and I won't read them all through. You guys can take a minute to kind of look at them, but basically this is talking about listening and respecting different opinions, showing courtesy, criticize constructively, and debate the policy, not the person. And so as long as we can keep those guidelines in mind, I think we'll have a nice civil meeting. So thank you. And we will now move to item number 3, which is receive presentation on the public draft of the Parks and Recreation Blueprint for the future. And let me back up. I assume there are no public comments at this time. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct. Kim, it looks like you just joined us. If you have any public comment, please feel free to use the raise hand option or the chat option, and we'll get to your question.
Let's just take a few seconds, see if Kim does have any comments. And then if more people do join in because of the link issue, maybe we'll take a break somewhere after this presentation and then let people do public comment on non-agenda items.
Thank you, Chair Thurman. This is Greg Avakian, Director for Parks and Recreation. I agree, I think that'd be a good opportunity to take a break as we had some link issues. To join the meeting will allow public comment after the first business item, which I'm honored to include our senior planner, Shauna Scott, again, to kind of review the process of where we're at. We had some great March meetings with our public workshop on March 25th, as well as the PRC meeting on March 3rd, I believe it was, to kind of get some additional content and feedback from our community as we move forward in the process. So At this time, I would introduce Shauna Scott for our next presentation.
Hey, thank you so much, Greg, and good evening, Chair Thurman and commissioners. As Greg mentioned, tonight we're continuing our review of the public draft Parks and Recreation Blueprint for the Future. Wanted to put this slide up here for any members of the public. Here are opportunities to learn more about this plan. You can view the plan at that top link. We also have Open City Hall set up for community members to provide comments there. They may also submit email correspondence to the email address up here on the screen, or submit written correspondence to the Parks and Recreation Department. The purpose of today's meeting is for the Parks and Recreation Commission to receive a presentation, receive public comment, and provide direction to staff on the public draft Parks and Recreation Blueprint. Back in so long ago, it feels like, last month, March 18th, we went to the Active Transportation Committee, presented the plan, and received some feedback from their committee, which we'll be presenting to the Planning Commission when we reach that point in May. Wanted to share this with your commission as well and see if you had any additional comments or input. Their recommendations for inclusion in the plan is to address connectivity to the Sinsheimer Park area. As mentioned in the previous meeting, we're looking at Sinsheimer Park, Sinsheimer Stadium, and also the Slow Swim as one area for a future comprehensive plan. So they wanted some more direct policies in here related to non-vehicular access to that area and also through the park. One of the things that Transportation Committee mentioned is that it's difficult to ride your bike to this area and also ride through this area, connecting to other areas of the city. They also identified a need for a paved trail connecting the Railroad Safety Trail to Sinsheimer Park. Our City Transportation Division has been looking at this and exploring different ways to try to accommodate this. There are some challenges there, but I'm confident that we can work with Public Works Transportation to identify the appropriate solution for this need. They also had a recommendation to provide stronger language in the policies that focus on sustainable transportation. That policy for shaded play areas identified that walkable distance of about 10 minutes, about a half a mile to parks, and so that was included in that policy. So they wanted some stronger language in those policies that went beyond evaluating the potential and striving to. In addition, again, coming up, Sinsheimer Park, Laguna Lake Park, and Meadow Park, they requested that those parks are specifically identified in those identified policies, and also brought forward a recommendation to amend the title of Policy 3.1, which currently states access by foot and bike, to be more inclusive for folks who may be accessing not on foot, not on bike, but other non-vehicular ways. They also provided a recommendation suggesting locating bike pumps. We'll get to that topic a little further in the presentation, but locating those pump tracks on routes to schools and where they can be accessed via bicycles so that somebody can actually ride their bicycle to the pump track, or kids riding to school, either on their way to school or on their way home, can get a little play activity on those pump tracks. They also requested a need to include, make sure we're including the need for bicycle parking in parks. So providing that infrastructure, if somebody rides their bike to a park, that they can actually safely lock up their bike in the park, with some standards for not only standard bicycles, but also electric bikes and cargo bicycles. And overall, they were just looking for a more specific ties to the active transportation plan. So I see a question. It's okay with me to stop and answer some questions if you have them. Rick, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is all great, and I agree with including it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I thought of that may not be in our plan, and maybe would relate to the ATP, is a long-term goal of connecting the Bob Jones Trail that goes to Avila with the county effort to connect that and have the city connect to wherever the county ends.
Mhm.
I think a long-term goal would be fantastic to have a biking, walking trail that goes all the way from SLO to Avila.
Right. I believe the intention of that is, I think, to have that trailhead at the Octagon Barn, and then having people be able to ride all the way to Avila on that trail. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that's correct, Shauna, and that would be part of our plan would be how to connect it from kind of the Los Osos Valley Road access to our current Bob Jones Trail, and then there's some new property that was purchased. Layman's terms, it's called the Strawberry Fields area that would then lead through that project into the Octagon Barn connection. So our community development, I believe, is already kind of having those conversations and kind of looking in the future for that as well. So
great.
All right, thank you. And then on March 25th, we had our public meeting held in a virtual format. At that meeting, we had about 30 attendees. You know, some people kind of came and went, but it looked to be about 30 people attending that. At that public meeting, we presented the public draft plan update. We conducted poll questions throughout the workshop and the presentation. The public was invited to add comments and any questions in the chat function. Staff responded to those questions received by the public, where we had those answers. And also we had an opportunity for the public to provide comments at the end of that meeting. And then we also saw some additional comments come in through Open City Hall or via email. And so it's great to see the public responding to this public draft. Some of the questions that we posed to the public are similar to the questions that we posed to your commission. We wanted to know if the draft plan represented the community as a whole and told the story regarding the needs of the community up to this point. We requested additional input related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We asked if there was anything missing from the update that would be important to include. And we also wanted to know if the plan represented their interests. So what we heard, some overarching comments included a need to incorporate some clarifying language regarding the identified future improvements, including the intention of the plan to provide equitable distribution of amenities throughout our identified sub-areas, and also making it clear that the plan update is intended to be flexible over the next 20 years. We also wanted to make sure the plan is clear that identified amenities for each park are possibilities for future consideration and really depend on implementation of other plans and projects identified in the plan, in addition to extensive community engagement to help us decide, what's really appropriate within those park areas. We also want to make it clear in the plan, as noted, that there will be further community outreach and input on how the parks, recreation, and programming can be more inclusive and equitable by providing diverse opportunities, access, and activities for everyone. And one of the requests from our team is we really encourage the community to provide us with that input. We want to know if the public is experiencing any social activity, ability, income, or any other barriers to accessing our parks and recreation, and how we can best address these issues. So one of the parks we focused on was Laguna Lake Park. Some of the comments we heard was the need for the plan to focus on the lake itself and associated passive and aquatic activities. Staff's recommendation to address this comment is to expand the description in the plan by highlighting the lake itself and ensuring clarity that future community engagement will help inform the balance between passive and active recreational uses and facilities. And we invite your input on this. We also heard a need for some commenters that there was a need for paths and facilities for roller sport activities, and they were specifically talking about roller skating, but I know there's a lot of different roller activities, or even wheelchair rolling activities, roller sports that we should be looking to accommodate. And there was also a request for an additional roller area facility for roller derby, for example, or opportunities so that people have a safe place, a flat surface to learn how to roller skate, to learn how to do these roller activities. Our inventory did identify a need for one additional type of hockey or roller facility in the city based on the daytime population, based on general plan build out. So it's not needed at this immediate time based on our current population, but two facilities in the city were identified at build out daytime populations. Just wanted to give you that context. So staff's recommendation for this comment is to expand the description of potential amenities to include improvements to existing paths and or construction of new or modified universal multi-use paths for pedestrians, bicycles, and other roller sports. The next park that we discussed at the public workshop was Meadow Park, including the Meadow Park Center and Exposition Park. Again, we heard from commenters a need for multi-use or skate tracks, or a need for just smooth surfaces for roller activities, whether that's a path or some kind of rink. And staff's recommendation to address this comment is to expand where we've identified bike pump tracks to include potential skating and other roller activities that are suitable for a track. Noting that the design of that pump track would really be dependent on community engagement and is anticipated to be designed for all ages and abilities, as these facilities provide some good opportunities to learn and gain confidence in these sports. So some things to think about is just the expanding essentially the definition of the pump track to include the skating roller activities, and also if this park is appropriate for identification of a potential facility in this area. In the Sinsheimer area, again, we received the similar comments about the multi-use and skate tracks and the need for the additional roller area or facility in the city. Similar recommendation here, expanding that definition, and then also seeking some input from your commission if this is an amenity that should be added to one of the potential amenities for this area. The public also had similar comments to the active transportation committee with the need for improved non-vehicular connections to the Sinsheimer area, in addition to improvements to and through the park. And so staff's recommendation is that connectivity issue should be highlighted more clearly in the plan. We also discussed Laguna Lake Golf Course and sought some targeted input on alternative programming for this area. And so some of the ideas that the public presented included an obstacle course event similar to a similar event that the City of Parks and Recreation has held in the past, incorporation of some multi-use trails, mini golf, incorporation of a covered multi-use area that could be used as a covered barbecue area or for roller sports. And then as far as programming, incorporating some inclusive and equitable golf clubs and classes. The final item that we discussed at the public workshop was the SLO Senior Center, and we received a lot of support for a multi-generational facility, either at the current or new location. Some of the comments also noted that the seniors may want some senior time, kind of maybe having separate areas in addition to a lot of opportunities for people of all ages to connect and do different activities together. And so at this time, staff doesn't recommend any further clarifications or additions, and just wanted to note that further outreach with members of the Senior Center and other members of the community will happen to determine the appropriate use and programming of either the existing facility or a future facility. So we had presented these discussion questions to your commission at the last March meeting. Just wanted to reiterate those here, and also seeking input to hear what you think about the recommendations from the Active Transportation Committee, and then any additional comments or feedback you have based on the public comments that you've been reading both in the report or in agenda correspondence. And I'll pull this slide up again at the end. So here, this is really our path that we've taken so far, and where we are now is really this kind of this blue arrow, where the blue arrow is. We're in this phase where we have our public draft plan. It's out to the public. We're receiving comments from the public, comments from your commission, getting ready to go to other advisory bodies like the Planning Commission, and then kind of looking at some key next steps. We're preparing for a study session with the City Council on May 4th, and then we'll return to your commission. That'll be a special meeting where we're anticipating a recommendation from your commission on the plan, which will go to the Planning Commission. We have a Planning Commission date scheduled for May 26th, and then we have our end target date of July 6th for City Council on consideration and adoption of the final plan. I just also wanted to note, we did also prepare to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, an initial study negative declaration that was sent out for public review and is also posted on the city's website. So now we can, Greg and I and the team are available for any questions you may have, or if you'd like to hear anything from the public first. Either way, I think would work well.
All right, thanks, Shauna. Well, since we opened the meeting late and we had a few issues with the links to the meeting, I'd like to see if Jeff has any public comment not related to the agenda item first, and then we can move to public comment for the agenda item. So do we have anything at this time, Jeff?
Thank you, Chair Thurman. We do not at the moment. The chat is quiet. The hands are down.
Okay. All right then. And you can just inform us if something pops up there. Okay, so we'll take it back to commission, and just go ahead and do your little raised hand icon, and we'll move through commissioners with comments and or questions for staff, and we'll get going. So who wants to go first?
Yeah, and I'd be glad to go back to any slide, or if you'd like me to pull up a PDF of the plan, I have that available. Just let me know what will help your discussion.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with one question because it was interesting. I wasn't able to make that March workshop, but I saw you had some graphics of skateboards and bikes on a kind of a pre-built type of pump track, but do we think that's realistic? Do you have any examples of that? It seems like, I know like sometimes BMXers and stuff will come out and try to use the skate park area, but it seems like, now that there's a group that is kind of really interested in roller sports, and we're trying to maybe appease them, but I just want to make sure we're not going to create chaos just to try to squeeze everything in. So I just want to see what you guys thought about that.
Great question, Chair Thurman. That picture was more of a dirt, kind of a bike pump or traditional dirt track that might be seen. I think Morro Bay, for example, has a similar facility. There's really two types of facilities with that. There's kind of a more lower, smaller undulating type paths that are either a concrete or a solid surface that would be referenced more for the roller, kind of a scooter, skateboard, traditional roller skate kind of quad type format. And then there's also the bike pump track, and those are kind of separate entities. They could be located in the same area, but they would be separate, two separate amenities at one facility if we combine them. So the picture is more of, again, of that traditional bike pump dirt style, but our research and from conferences and also our professional connections, there's a lot of different surfaces we would probably recommend as we get closer to that. If we're doing design, we probably go with a more sustainable solid surface that's not dirt. So therefore it's more weather resistant, long-term viability, multi-use. The one that Shauna was talking about more for roller activities, we'll say roller wheeled activities, would be a much smaller undulating path that kind of gives a little bit of a wave motion, but not necessarily the more extreme higher edge berms and path in a sense. So it's kind of two different things that we definitely will kind of fine tune in the plan to make sure that they're not as confusing right now. And then as far as the other piece, I think the other comment was more on a flat surface, much like we have over at the Hampian rink over at Santa Rosa Park, where it's made to be a smooth, solid surface for learning how to skate or actually doing, there's skate fitness, there's skate dancing, and there's also roller derby and hockey that's a little more competitive, but there's also a recreational aspect to those.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, because it was kind of sounding like there was trying to combine that. And then, and like the flat surface out at Santa Rosa, is there potential to also do like basketball courts or something like that to make it a little bit more kind of like multifunctional?
Mm-hmm. Everything's possible, as you know. We like to do multi-use to kind of get the best bang for the buck, but also sometimes certain things are specialized, and it would come into design as we get closer to that. We kind of want to leave all the options on the table to make sure that we are covering as many amenities and options as possible.
Okay, sounds good. Looks like Commissioner Applegate has her hand up, so go ahead, Carrie.
I had some of the similar questions about the combined use, but then I also was thinking about in terms of how the rink at Santa Rosa Park is used now, between basketball, hockey, roller derby, do you find that rink is hard to manage or schedule? Is it overcrowded? How is it used currently?
Yeah, I would say it's starting to reach its capacity. It's starting to actually, I think COVID has increased the use. For basketball, for example, those are two of, I'd say almost 2.5. It's like 2 courts of lit basketball courts. The only other one is over at Meadow Park, and it's not a high quality lit park for competitive basketball or any kind of evening use. So we've seen definitely an increase in the amount of basketball activity there because of some of the limitations on fitness centers and rec centers and gyms that are maybe currently have indoor basketball facilities, as well as our roller, not just roller derby, roller hockey, but roller skating community is starting to grow. We've seen a lot of that as well during the last year, including some of our own park and rec programs that we've partnered up with, as well as we've always had a good, strong roller derby adult activities, as well as the youth and adult roller hockey, which have been pretty much, I'd say, mainly using that rink. Devin might have some additional information, but we definitely are noticing an increase, and that's kind of one thing we wanted to make sure it's incorporated into this plan, because if this all came around in the last year, but even during the consultant's inventory, like Shauna stated in the beginning, there was a need or identified need over the next 20 years to include an additional rink or roller facility in a sense. What we've noticed more recently is that demand is kind of increased, and there might be an opportunity to move it from a long-term to a mid or near-term priority based off of you as commissioners' preference.
Would you also say then, is it necessary then to maybe add that there should be more basketball courts too, or separate from the multi-use areas? I mean, on top of everything.
I think that's a great follow-up. Sorry, I probably didn't address that one. Based off of what we have also seen during COVID and evening use and alternative, say after work hours type use, the addition of either more courts or at least more lit basketball courts is something that, yeah, Devin has got on his radar. He's been in communication with some community members over the last really 6 to 8 months about expressing some desire for those as well. And if that occurred, then we would move those basketball sports off of the rink in the evening and relocate them to other courts that are lit.
Is
Yeah,
Emerson Park
I see
lit?
Devin jumped on. So
I can elaborate further just on the actual basketball court. So with the sub areas, the way we have them listed out, there's actually no true basketball courts over on that side. So that's why we kind of want to make sure that the focus is on the sub areas to offer up that equity across the city, because on that side, essentially the north side of 101, those are the only basketball courts that we have over there. All the other ones are on the east side or on the north side near Laguna Lake. So that's why we want to make sure that the focus is on the sub areas and offering both basketball surfaces as well as roller surfaces, so you can provide those into the different sub areas within walking distance. But and to answer your question, we are very overbooked, especially with our partnership with the YMCA. They do take up the majority of the time in the PM hours during the weekday, which does not offer as much to either the other hockey groups, roller groups, or just recreational uses.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, I was just looking up the plan and the inventory, and it does identify a need for additional outdoor basketball to serve the population based on our level of service standards. So I think it is about like at least 3 additional courts in the city.
I've been talking without my microphone on, so that's not helpful. Okay. Do we have any other comments from commissioners on this subject? Okay, it looks like Adam Stowe has a comment.
Yeah, I think one of the key things we're not talking about right now is space. And looking at these additional need numbers here, I think we sort of have to consider that every time we put in some sort of flat surface, it needs to be a multi-use surface. We're looking at basketball courts. We need 6 right now. Tennis courts, we need 7 right now. What else? Diamond fields, we need 4 right now plus 5 later. It seems to me that no matter what we put in, whether it's a pump track or it's a basketball court or a pickleball court, we need to consider that everything, given our limited land, should probably serve multiple purposes. That's my main comment.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because like they just were talking about, staff was talking about, you start scheduling activities for one sport, which then pushes another sport off. And so, I mean, it does make sense, but I guess the more courts we had or more flat surfaces, that would spread out the need and not maybe have so much stacking of requests. Okay, let me see. I did if you guys are done with this particular just part of the discussion, I want to kind of circle
Rodney,
back.
Sorry to interrupt, Rodney. I see that Vice Chair Spector has his physical hand up, if you can see.
He is in. Okay.
He's there, yes.
He's in the house. Go ahead. I did not see that he was here. So go ahead, Bob.
I believe you might be on mute, Bob. We're having some audio challenges. Bob, we're gonna see if we can. You might need to log back in. We don't see a mute icon, but we also don't hear you at this point. I do see that Commissioner Applegate has her hand up, so maybe we will pause for Spector and we'll go to Applegate.
I saw Carrie Howell had her hand up too. Did she get her questions answered? Good. Okay.
Let's make sure that we take our hand up and down when we're finished with our comment too, so we can make sure everybody gets a chance. So go ahead, Commissioner Applegate.
This might not be relevant right now, or maybe you're going to address it. My memory is, I don't recall if the new housing developments that are being built are the parks that they're putting in their developments going to possibly include some of these things that we're talking about?
Great
Yes.
question. This will be a tag team for Shauna and I as I kind of use my memory. If I can just refer to the Rigetti Ranch or Orchid area development right now, there are tennis courts, basketball court, and pickleball courts, among other things. But as far as court type activities, those are planned for that development, as well as some field sports, more rectangular, like soccer pitch kind of style. Currently, I don't believe any of those are going to be lit based off of the proximity to the neighborhood, but that's still to be determined. I don't recall the exact plans for San Luis Ranch, if they include any court spaces, but I do know that I think Avila Ranch has some field and court amenities as well. So I'll see if Shauna has more details on that.
No, thank you, Greg. I'm sorry. I do recall, I think we maybe shared that information in the past. I'm sure I can maybe take a look and find those specifics, but just wanted to note when we were looking at the inventory and future needs, we did take into consideration what was anticipated for parks in the specific plan areas and the Avila Ranch development plan areas. So we did take those into account and wanted to make sure our tables were clear what was identified in those specific plans, so that if for whatever reason that didn't happen, those facilities are not provided in the way that they're described in those plans, we'd know that we have an additional need. The one area that we did look at a little bit differently is the Margarita area, because that park has been identified in that specific plan for a while, and we haven't received indication from the property developer that parcel would be developed. So we wanted to make sure we're looking at things that looked more realistic as far as what we anticipate will be built in the future.
And then Commissioner Stowe has a question that I want to clarify on the quantity. There's conceptual plans for the Rigetti Ranch neighborhood, and currently those plans include 4 tennis, 6 pickleball, and 1 basketball court, but those are still flexible. We will not do, we won't have community engagement and design confirmation discussions and workshops until summer and early fall. So those could be flexible, but currently those are outlined as potentially 4 tennis, 6 pickleball, 1 basketball, and then 1 full-size soccer pitch, and then 2 half-size kind of youth style soccer pitches. Again, those are all flexible based off design, official design, but that was the original conceptual designs back in 2016. And
right,
then
thanks,
help
Greg.
Rodney out. It looks like Commissioner Howell does have her hand up now.
Oh, interesting. I'm not seeing, oh, hers is blending into her background. That's fine. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Howell.
Sorry about that. Yeah, and so to answer, looking at this and just having attended the 25th, and so this is maybe the second time I'm hearing this without the context of all the questions kind of and the engagement leading up to it, but that question that is there more to further incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think the challenge with incorporating, at least with equity and diversity, is that those are going to be defined in some of the specifics that maybe, in getting this plan approved, we can't name just yet. But I was going to say maybe there's some inherent value in some of these naming conventions. We see parks specific for roller skating. And so, what I'm hearing is that just a paved path, would it behoove one to say instead, paved way for wheelchair access, stroller access, that becomes inclusive as opposed to like specific. So it's like, if we're going to be specific, is it in our best interest to include all of those specificities? I don't know.
That's great feedback. Thank you, Commissioner Howell. We've used the word universal design a lot to incorporate sort of just a all-purpose play surface or all-purpose access. But if it's not quite sending the right message, or as the readers are reading it, the lens is still a little blurry, we definitely want to polish that up. Because again, this is a 20-year document. We want to make sure that no matter who's sitting in this current Zoom call, for example, might not be here 15 years from now, does it still represent the philosophies and goals of this commission, the staff, and our community as of 2021? An example, and that it might be in one of the chapters already, but when we look at playground design, are we incorporating that for all abilities, wheelchair, to different sizes and abilities? So it's, again, more inclusive for all to participate in versus a specialized playground that might be only for high end or certain clientele. So I think that's the other piece of the DEI lens we're looking at, as well as accessibility for all community. If it's bike path, bus route, walking, like I think Devin mentioned it, and Shauna, are the amenities within, you know, a 30-minute walk or half mile, you know, that kind of thing, 10-minute kind of outside your front door. Can you walk 10 minutes to get to an amenity? That kind of focus.
All right, thanks, Greg, and thanks, Commissioner Howell. Yeah, I just wanted to go back to, you know, the Active Transportation Committee's comments and see if anybody had any input on those. Or, you know, I think they're definitely, they spend a lot of time with their part in as far as updating their element, and I think it would behoove us to kind of make it a little more clear. But I just want to see if other people have any input, and I'd want to make a quick comment before we go to others. You know, I think thinking of our trails as multimodal, kind of to tee into what Commissioner Howell said, but also we see all these new forms of transportation and recreation, like the uni-wheel thing. I might not be getting all the things, but, you know, and battery-powered skateboard. So all of a sudden we have, you know, not just bikes and people running or jogging, but we have all these other things, which can be kind of an issue when we're all trying to be on the trail at the same time. So we should think about that, and also how wide a trail has to be now, instead of maybe, you know, if it was 8 feet, maybe it's 16 feet. That way people can hopefully share the road, because we certainly don't want to be out there trying to police every activity that goes on. So anyway, comment from me, but I'll just see if anybody else has any comments on the Active Transportation Committee's input. Looks like Adam Weber has his hand up. Go ahead.
What's up? As the commissioner that's on a skateboard more often than not, I agree with the multimodal aspects of their plan, and I really appreciate that. My main comment for the Chapter 5, Table 5.1 is kind of seconding what they have to say as far as Meadow Park. We don't, as far as there's nothing in the 0 to 5 term on that 5.1 for us on there, and it seems like a dog park or some sort of activation there for that neighborhood. It's hard to get there. I know we're talking about putting a crosswalk light in there. I can't remember what street that is right now, but I just want to second that. Yes, it's good to get multiple modes, and I think that Meadow Park is kind of getting forgot. Well, not forgotten, but there's nothing in the 0 to 5, and I feel like we could bump that up to get, especially if dog parks or something like that. It seems like a good place to get that in the near future instead of pushing it back to the long term. Can't hear you, Rod.
There we go. I don't want to let you hear me breathing all the time. So anyway, thanks for that. I just want to go back to commissioners and see if there are additional comments as far as active transportation. Okay, looks like none. So I'll just ask either Shauna or Greg, as far as what we're looking at. Do you guys want to kind of move on to the questions for PRC and kind of open it up into those four areas?
Do you want to do any public comment, or are you prior to more discussion with the commissioners?
We can do that. We can check in and see if there are any
Okay.
public comments, see if anybody's made it to the meeting. So looks like maybe we do have a Shauna Gustafson. I'm sorry, probably saying it wrong, but looks like she has her hand up.
Yeah, Shauna Gustafson. Hi, I will, oh, you moved. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and allow you to unmute. And if you have a question, well, you can do it at this time.
Just had a question on the pickleball. Sorry, I got late in here late. I was trying to find the meeting link. More pickleball, taking up the multi-use spaces. At what point does an organization grow too big to take all the public spaces and need their own facility? And what do we have to do to get them their own facility so that we can maintain these other multi-use spaces for other things such as skateboarding, little kids on bikes, or like parents wanting to go out into someplace safer, not necessarily the skate park or the street, but where they want to skate or, scooter, bike, blade, unicycle. I've seen people out there on the one boards trying. So just at what point do we quit giving all this multi-space to the pickleball and try and share a little bit?
All right, well, thank you for that, Shauna. And that's definitely a good question as pickleball becomes more popular. As you probably heard earlier, we were discussing flat spaces and how to share those efficiently. So if staff has any comment on that, you might chime in.
I can jump in. I think the theme of that one is, as we continue to expand amenities, we know that pickleball is a growing activity in both sport and recreation. And a lot of, like I mentioned before, the Rigetti Ranch neighborhood does include additional pickleball courts. Currently, as I mentioned, there are 6 on a conceptual plan. There are 3 permanent ones over at French Park with a shared facility to add 4 more during certain times of the day on the tennis court. And I believe there's some other additional pickleball courts planned for some of the other newer developments in Avila Ranch. So as we kind of move forward with the current developments that are occurring in the city, as well as our own plan, making sure we have a good balance. And I believe that Devin stated earlier, our sub areas, making sure there's well-represented amenities in each sub area to allow for kind of that sprinkling of activities for neighborhoods, as well as maybe a concentrated area that is more of like a Damon Garcia sports complex is a concentrated area compared to a community park or neighborhood park. And those will come out really as we do our mini master plans that Shauna was mentioning about Sinsheimer Park, Laguna Lake Park, and those are considered like our larger community parks that we would look at to make sure that all the amenities are well represented and multi-use, and not necessarily dominated by one section of population, for example. And then hopefully that also provides more opportunity. We mentioned the bike pump tracks and sort of the roller style undulating tracks that would be not just at a skate park in Santa Rosa Park, but also in other sub areas within the city. I hope that kind of answers where Ms. Gustafson was going for. I got a thumbs up. I feel good. Thank you so much.
Do we have any other public comment at this time?
We do not at the moment.
Okay, yep. Okay, so we can always come back to some public comment as people may join in. So, well, yeah, there we go. I guess that's you, Shauna, manipulating the slides there. So, yeah, let's go ahead and address the question, see if we have any input. So we'll just start down the line with number 1, are modifications to Chapter 5 needed, including draft plan, update table 5.1, phase of Tier 3 park improvements. So we have discussed that a little bit, but I'm going to check in with everybody, see what you guys think. And I can't see everybody on here, so just yell out if you have comments. I don't see all the members.
We don't
Ronnie,
have any.
I just wanted to make sure that my last question kind of dovetailed into this one with the Meadow Park. Shauna, I know I saw you taking notes as I was talking. So
yeah, thank you. I did capture that, and I'd be glad to revisit the items that your commission has identified for changes to the plan. I did want to note, I recall at the last Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, there were some comments about if we were putting too many amenities and projects overall, kind of in that front end 0 to 5, 5 to 10 year range, and if some additional, the spacing out of those or some additional shifting in that table was warranted. So if your commission has thought about that, and this is kind of where this question is, like, are these priorities in the appropriate place? Knowing that we will need plans, we will need community outreach, engagement, work on the city's financial plan. There'll be different steps that go into implementing this, but just at least for right now, for this plan, if you have any suggestions for changes to that table, our ears are open.
Okay. Yeah, and there was a question, I think Greg had posed it earlier, just talking about changing priority for roller areas and, the lit basketball courts. So if we would bump that to a sooner, earlier tier. So what does commission think about that?
I agree with that.
All right, Commissioner Applegate. Would you think it would be more like the 1 to 5, or a little kind of mid-range tier 2?
Without seeing, I don't have the table printed up, unfortunately, so I don't recall everything on it, but I know Shauna just mentioned about not putting so many amenities in the earlier stages, and here we are adding more. But I mean, if a lot of them, I think, if I recall right, are just creating plans for future use for them, then I think that's reasonable. I'm not sure. I don't know how long it takes. I mean, considering how long this plan to roll out, maybe some of it's unreasonable, but I don't know why you can't at least strive for that. Maybe there's some language about if tier 3 amenities aren't met in 0 to 5, then they will automatically bump to the next. I don't know. But right. I think I imagine city staff will have more input on what's feasible for them, because that's going to be on their plates.
Right. I do think that we put a lot of thought into this, and then, there has been some recent public comment, and then, similar to some of the things that we did before we had a plan, there might be a slight knee-jerk reaction to a vocal group. Not that they don't deserve a voice, but we want to make sure that we're not just reacting because roller sports have all of a sudden kind of chimed in here. So I just want to make sure that we have the right fit and see if it really makes sense, or if we need to just kind of stay with the plan. So Commissioner Weber, looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, Shauna, I think this looks really balanced. I think it's a good balance table as far as where things are at. I don't, but again, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting things in the 0 to 5. Not that we're going to get to all of them, but if it's not there, then we're definitely not going to get to it. So it seems like it's okay to put it there. To me, I don't see harm. From looking at this list, it's really the only one that doesn't have anything in the 0 to 5 for the most part. So that's my take on that. I know we were trying to scale back, but if we scale all the way back, then there's no chance of that happening. So
If I can make just a quick comment, and then we can get to the other commissioners. Great discussions, and I think that both comments by Chair Thurman and Commissioner Weber are valid for this. My recommendation is projects do take a long time. There's anywhere from 18 to 24 months of discussion and design work before you even break ground, and then depending on the project itself, that could be another 6 to 24 months, again on scope. So as you look at priority and needs, near term, 1 to 5 is just is a range of years, but near term is probably the appropriate language, near, mid, and long. And if you believe it should be more near, I would recommend that you go with your instinct on that. It can always be shifted to a midterm. I think it might be harder to do a midterm and pull it into a near term as we kind of forecast CIP budgets and project budgets once the plan is completely endorsed. So just a little side note for your thinking process there.
All right, thanks, Greg. I think that's helpful. So yeah, pushing out is easier than pulling it back toward us. So excellent.
And sorry, just one more thing for you, Chair Thurman, and I see that Commissioner Stowe has his hand up.
Okay.
Vice Chair Bob Spector is on now with his iPhone, so he is able to communicate. I think hopefully that way you might test it out and see, Bob, if you're able to have a voice prompt, because I know you didn't have a chance to weigh in at all at this point. Hearing nothing still. Okay.
Sorry, Bob.
Yeah, why don't you move? We'll move back to Commissioner Stowe, and we'll see if we can work with Bob. Maybe Captain Andrews can see if there's any options for unmuting his iPhone icon versus his video icon.
All right, well, while we're working on that, I'll jump back in. I know there's been a lot of public comment recently on roller facilities. And while I agree with Rodney completely that we might sort of have a knee-jerk reaction, I think Commissioner Spector all along has been saying that we need to focus on having all-inclusive facilities, whether it's a playground or a pump track or a flat surface or a roller rink. And I think that's extremely important that we plan for all-inclusive facilities, no matter what it is. And if it happens to function as a basketball court and a pickleball court and a skate rink and a pump track, great. But whatever facilities we put in, I think, as Commissioner Howell was saying recently tonight, we need to focus on the fact that we need to plan for the next 35, 40 years, being all-inclusive for all sorts of modes of things.
Thank you, Adam. Okay. Yeah, so it does sound like, I mean, on this particular item, that it does make a little more sense, and if that's what I'm hearing, to kind of make it more of a near term when we're talking about the flat surface roller area / basketball courts. So if we could push that into the near term, Shauna, I think that would be good. And I thought I saw some public comment hands up. I don't know, is that true, Jeff, or not?
Yeah, Shauna, I guess we have another minute.
Again, I just wanted to let everybody know that while roller skating might seem, or roller skating, rollerblading, all of that sort of outdoor activity on rolling wheels might seem like a knee-jerk reaction. We've been here for a solid 15 years trying to find some place to skate. The only thing that we've ever found is the skate park or the Kinhampian hockey rink. We're not all aggressive skaters. We're not all roller derby or hockey players. Some of us just like to dance and skate around, teach our kids how to do it. And so it's something that is really going to be around for a long time. And that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna.
All right. Thank you, Shauna. And Adam Stowe, looks like you have your hand up again. So go ahead. Oh, I guess not. Okay. And so we go back to Jeff. Do we have any other public comment?
There was some public comment in the chat. Julie Jensen Chow agrees with this wholeheartedly. Roller sports has had spaces taken from Paso and Morro Bay and are now pickleball spaces. Multi-use spaces are critical for inclusivity and equity. Roller skating in general has had a huge increase in popularity over the pandemic times. Thank you, Julie.
All right, thank you. Okay. Thanks for the public comment. We do appreciate it. So, okay. I guess we'll come back. We'll stop public comment on this part for now, and then come back to question number 2 about the draft plan. Does it represent the community as a whole, and tell the story regarding the community engagement opportunities to this point? So we'll take it back to commission, see if you guys have any comments, see if we have anything missing. It looks like Rick Blair. I don't know if you're unmuted. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on one thing I know that Bob has raised in the past, is creating an element of community through gathering places and having neighborhood parks that facilitate that. And one of the things we've been hearing, and I think we all pretty much agree, so we need to have more dog parks, which helps bring community members together, but also is a good activity for the four-legged friends. So I think that as we're looking at how we go forward, I think that's going to help quite a bit in trying to energize some of the parks through events. I really like that concept, which we have in our plans. So I think that's great. And I think that to the extent that we can be all inclusive and to the extent possible, that makes sense too, to try to drive more activity and be very welcoming to others. So one other quick comment, unrelated, but somewhat related, is regarding Laguna Lake. And I want to point out, I think you've found a good balance between trying to make the most out of available space that's unique in that it's not bordered by houses for doing certain activities. At the same time, trying to reinvigorate the natural beauty of the lake and boating and fishing and outdoor space. So finding that right balance, I think, is going to be a challenge for us. But I think that's where we need to go. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Rick. And yeah, my opinion is that we have spent a lot of time getting public input, and voices have been heard on multiple occasions. So in reading through this, I feel like that we have captured what the community is interested in, and we've listened to them and did our best to incorporate them into the draft plan. So I feel comfortable with what we've done. I don't feel like there's specific groups that have been alienated. So just wanted to see if anybody has any agreement, disagreement on that part. Carrie Applegate, I think you're muted right now. There you
go. I may not be recalling because it's been a while. And I'm a part of the adult softball community, and I I'm not recalling any outreach emails or anything to that community. I know we stand at the fields and make complaints and stuff, but the population of softball players just isn't the active community that are coming to meetings or speaking out so much. But I know that I wonder if they did have some kind of survey to take or offer direct comments, if they would provide any further input on softball use.
I'll field that one real quick for you. Yeah, now that we are able to reinstate softball activities in May, we can have our sports coordinator maybe do an email blast to send them to the link. Our Open City Hall forum will be available all the way through, I think, middle to end of May, if I'm not mistaken, Shauna, up until we get through the Planning Commission's endorsements. So we will make sure that they have that outreach, much like many of our other user groups. So we've been in contact with youth sports and aquatics of making sure that they're staying in the loop on opportunities for feedback and to attend these meetings. But yeah, we can definitely do some additional outreach as we kind of hit the home stretch.
Thank you.
And that goes for multiple groups, not just softball. We can kind of do another kind of a media push to our traditional users and a lot of our community groups that we partner with over the years.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, kind of a last minute, not a last minute, but like a kind of a last opportunity to chime in. It does look, I see Andrew Weber did have his hand up, but we have Bob here with some, he has a question which maybe Jeff can answer, or someone. How does he unmute on the bottom left of screen? So,
you know, Bob, unfortunately, I think that's the only way. I cannot unmute you. I can mute you, but we're not having that issue.
I think Adam Stowe has a question as well. Rodney, if you can't see it.
Okay. All right, we'll go back to that. All right, I'm trying to get out of there. Okay, go ahead and Commissioner Stowe.
Just like we moved up the planning time frame, at least for the flat surfaces that will serve a whole bunch of different elements. One thing we haven't really talked about, and Rick, I agree with everything you just said, and to touch on that, one of the biggest needs we have is for outdoor gathering and picnic areas. And we focused a lot on courts and fields and pump tracks, but I mean, according to our needs survey, we need 6 right now and another 8 by 2035. So I just want to make sure we have an emphasis on anytime there's new development going in or new park renovation, just focusing on maybe putting in another meeting area, because truly there aren't a lot of quality group gathering areas at our parks. There are little picnic tables and there are huge pavilions, and there's not a whole lot in between. So I'd like to see that sort of bumped up as well to help meet current and future needs.
Thank you, Commissioner Stowe. I see Shauna making some notes there. Yeah, I can reference that the current developments that are pre-planned in a sense include picnic and the gazebo type things. But I think as we look at any renovations to like Meadow and our current park structures, we want to definitely consider that as part of the plans. So thank you for your comment.
And I
Okay.
just a quick clarification. It sounded like you're talking about kind of those, I think I heard you mention smaller areas, so not maybe so much group, but smaller areas. Is that what I was?
I think something in between a picnic table and a huge gazebo that's out at Laguna Lake that you have to rent the facility for would be very nice for 2 or 3 family gatherings where you didn't have to have reservations months ahead, you know, just where we have these 6 different quadrants. Maybe we add 6 smaller gathering areas and you can walk to one in 5 minutes.
Great.
So
thank you.
What do those look like, Adam? You said it's something between a picnic table and a pavilion. So is that like something without a table, like just a pad, or what are we kind of thinking?
Well, I'm not a landscape architect. That's not exactly my strong point.
Right.
I will defer to staff and their expertise on the best types of facilities to install and meet the public's needs. I'm just saying there's obviously a need, and we need to focus on that in the short term.
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying, where we do have like the large, you know, you might have a family reunion of 50 people, and then you have your picnic table of a family of 4 or 5. But what's the in between, where you want to get 3 or 4 tables, or even just an area that you can gather that's not necessarily a barbecue area, but just a social area, kind of planned in parks. I know that a lot of our great designers that we work with locally and up and down the state for park development, we can incorporate those kind of activities, so, or those amenities. So we'll put that in our notes. Thank you. And I think I may have heard a Bob right there. I'm going to check in with.
Can you hear me now?
There he is.
We hear you, sir.
The legend.
I'm on my 4th option. I'm now on a phone. But if you can hear me, I'll talk. I did want to, you probably covered everything, but in relation to your number 2, I did go through a process trying to figure out the big themes that I would want, if I was talking to a neighbor and they say, well, what are you guys doing? What's in the 150 pages? Could I condense it into a small thing? So I'll give them very quickly, it's only a couple words each, and then ask you if you feel these are in fact big themes, but if they are, if we've done it, if we've answered the question. So for example, number 1, I talk about the issue of matching capacity to changing needs. So 15 years from now, we don't have a whole bunch of soccer teams with no fields to play on, or bocce players that, with no courts. And I realize that the capacity changes, as does the need change, but we want to be able to keep up. Secondly, this promotion and development of neighborhoods is just a key thing of having more programs more close to home. It relates to accessibility, relates to all sorts of things. Even the fact that dog parks, of course, the gazebos are a stage. We now have stages in 4 or 5 parks, but they convey to the neighborhood, this is the place where we gather for concerts, for speeches, for whatever. Third would be a commitment to excellence, which we address sort of across the board, but I'm saying it should be up front. Facilities, administration, staff, transparency, community engagement. I don't want to compromise before the fact, if you will. The last 2 were brief: environmental stewardship and public health and safety. Public health and safety relates to lights, maintenance, design, staffing, bathrooms, crime, all of that sort of stuff. That those 5 points quickly seem to incorporate everything that's in the pages. And I would have an aspirational bonus that I think we should get to the point that 100% of households within the city are touched by our programs or services each year. And when you begin to think it through, that may be pretty close to possible. So I like the question, but I like being able to upfront say these things that we stand for and that we're trying to accomplish. I hope some of that makes sense. I hope you still hear me, for that matter.
Hello? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just had a question. I couldn't quite write fast enough. After you noted environmental stewardship, and then, I think it was public health and safety, right?
Right, in the broadest sense. And those things, like every program we're talking about, these 5 things should be part of the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, we do. I mean, we do have our themes that we've identified for the plan, but one thing that we talked about at the last meeting, and may not have been clear kind of in staff's recommendation of really being clear about this, flexibility of the plan is also intended to kind of incorporate that, your concept of matching capacity to changing needs.
Right.
And so, I'll take another look at these with the team and make sure we're hitting on these. We also saw a need for an additional introduction, or kind of like an executive summary, so to speak, at the beginning of the plan that really drives these points home, where somebody could read that and understand the plan and then get into the details if they wanted to.
And one thing that you mentioned earlier, while I'm talking, the idea of, you mentioned accessibility and a variety of things. Obviously, all the programs need to be accessible, but also need to be accessible geographically, not just being walking, biking, but distance. You know, we point out dog parks is a great example. It's obscene to have to put your dog in a car to drive 5 miles to go to a dog park. One thing that we don't have is this question of affordability. So we have accessibility, affordability, and manageability. I didn't see anywhere a statement. In other words, if we were a pure nonprofit, we'd have a statement someplace that says no one denied service due to their inability to pay. We don't have that statement. And I know we're public, but I don't know even our view of that. There's ways to implement it so we're not in financial jeopardy, but we don't say that any place that I saw. And the last thing relates to manageability, which all of our systems need to be consumer friendly and consumer driven, which once again is starting from the bottom up, not the other way around. So having been quiet the whole meeting, I'll go back to being quiet.
All right, thanks for those comments, Bob. Glad you finally got in. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, and I hear what you're saying about your last comment about you know, no one denied because of lack of ability to pay, but we have a lot of programs that are greatly reduced, and I'm curious how we'd kind of figure that out as far as like what, you know, how do you prove that you are not able to pay? And do we start a system where people are all saying I can't afford it? So, you know, I guess maybe it would be something that you could do an application where you could do some kind of thing like for swimming, perhaps, if you were just like completely unable. And I do see Greg is waving furiously, so I'll let him comment.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody knows that, you know, we have these standards and mechanisms already in place that we use a lot for childcare and our youth services program for scholarships and reduced funding to meet those, and they have a criteria they have to meet based off of salary, and it's a nice little formula package. We also use it for our swim lesson program, anything that has a registration, and we really focus on the youth activities, obviously. And we continue to look at grants and partnerships, and that's kind of where the staffing and programs focus is on. We've got some great community groups that we collaborate with Slow Baseball, with the Slow Throwers, with Pickleball, that have all made donations of both time and financial, and we'll say sweat and tears and muscle to get things done that keeps our costs down. And we are always focused on certain percentages based off of city council direction on what our cost recovery is. And again, Parks and Rec is a general fund supported department, and all of our fees are traditionally reduced compared to for the private sector already. And then some are there to are mandated to make a little bit more in the revenue generation compared to others. So those are all things that we look at as staff, that we work with city council, we work with you as the PRC as we develop programmings and budget fee adjustments to make sure that we are being as equitable and affordable for our community at all times.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I am familiar with that. I just think we should give ourselves some credit for that, I suppose.
Yeah, I would just, I don't know if it goes into this plan, but it's part of our mission statement, it's part of our program and Parks and Rec department, you know, kind of more master plan or strategic plan is probably a better word, phrase to use. I don't know if it goes into the blueprint for the future for amenities, but we can definitely look at that language to make sure it's stating what accessibility really means. That is also including a financial accessibility, not just physical accessibility.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Greg. And let me see here. Any commissioners with hands up? I don't see any right now. I did see one more comment, I believe, from Shauna out in the public comment section. So let's see if Jeff has anything from her.
Yeah, if we're going to continue to take public comment over Zoom, Is that what we want to do?
Yeah, I think just to jump in that we will take a couple more public comments before we move on as we kind of close up this business item. But this is important because of the opportunity to get the public feedback is limited to certain times of the month as we do these virtual kind of workshops and meetings. So I think we can at least field one or two more questions from our public in attendance.
Great, thank you both. Shauna, I see you with your hand up. The floor is yours.
Hey everybody, Shauna with the U again. When we're talking about the financial feasibility, Greg, I was really it's awesome to hear that other people are helping the park with like their time, sweat, and tears. How would another nonprofit go about helping the city of San Luis to resurface basketball courts? Is that something you would rather me send you like a personal email on? Because I can.
You got it. Yeah. Best way is I'll put it in the chat, but you can reach out to a few of our staff. We entertain those all the time and have some good relationships, as I mentioned before. So let me just put that in the chat, and then we can forward you. Make sure you get in touch with the appropriate staff members and all that too. So see if that worked. Great.
Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Right now, Chair Thurman, there are no other comments or hands.
Okay, and yeah, so we will move along here then. Just to make sure that we go through all these questions, just to see what input we have, I'll hit number 3, which I believe our new commissioner, Carrie, had kind of broached a little bit earlier. I just want to see if there are any other comments on this item. Is there more the draft plan can do to further incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion? If we have any comments, go ahead. Looks like we don't have any.
Oh, may I? Sorry.
Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay? I switched to a headphone.
No problem. Commissioner Howell, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, I was wondering, so in kind of responding to number 3, kind of addressing number 2 a little bit, so does the draft represent the community as a whole, and then also tell the story about engagement? And so there's the community as a whole, and then the community who's chosen to engage. And so to be equitable would probably be to address the entire community. And so that might be the community members who've chosen to engage, that's kind of this qualitative data. And then that quantitative might be in the geographic that, like, I think I heard Commissioner Spector referencing, or like the actual physical distance between different facilities, or the physical distance between the amenities and the services provided. And then that could be, that could share more about the community as a whole, the specific community, as opposed to the community who's chosen to engage. And that could be a more equitable approach. I think the alternative, right, would be kind of shining a light on those who've spoken up, but that would put the burden of change on the shoulders of those who need it the most. And so it's like, who hasn't spoken up, right, could still be part of that community.
All right, thank you. I was not able to hear everything. Your audio was a little bit in and out, but I just want to make sure if Shauna was able to catch all that, or if you need any clarification.
I actually would appreciate some clarification on that. I caught a little bit about like physical, like looking at the distance, but I want to make sure I'm getting everything that you commented on. Sorry to have you repeat all that.
No, it's all good. No, yeah, I have a kind of bummer internet at the moment. I would say, yeah, it's just the community who's chosen to engage, and then the community who hasn't yet engaged, and that they would not necessarily not be in need of services, but rather have not spoken up. And so if it's like, you know, they could still be in need of services, right? Because otherwise, you know, and that would be that equitable approach. So it's like, here's who we've heard from, and then here's the entire community. And so that would be like your more quantitative, like the geographical, the distance between services, or the varied offers of services, something like that.
Yeah, that has honestly been a little bit of a struggle with this plan, trying to bring out people in our community that don't have the opportunity to come to a meeting or come to a workshop, especially over this year, may not have internet, may not have access, all of those barriers that we're trying to learn more about. So I definitely encourage any member of the public listening and all the commissioners, if there are groups that could be informed about all the different ways to communicate. It could be hard copy letter, it could be an email, it could be a phone call, anything that we can do to hear more from people from everyone in our community would really benefit this plan. Yeah, Greg,
Thanks,
did you?
Shawna.
To just jump to kind of bridge with that, we had some comment about that at our workshop 2 weeks ago that was similar, I think a similar theme to what you're discussing, Commissioner Howell. And our staff have made some contacts already with some groups, underrepresented community members, and Devin specifically is working with them currently to set up a meeting and get some connections with that, as well as our youth services program. We have a lot of touch points now that they're in motion at the school districts and they're back in person. So we are utilizing those contacts to reach a lot of our community that we don't see again on Zoom or even at our traditional council meeting or council chamber meetings, to at least provide them an opportunity to go to the links, or at least maybe even have some interaction with our staff on site while they're teaching or interacting with the public. So we're continuing to cast that net as wide as we can as we kind of head down the home stretch. And it was one of the community members also brought that up, and that was something that we wanted to focus on for the next couple weeks here as we head down like I said, down this home stretch into May.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And one of the areas of the plan that we tried to address, kind of that second component of your comment about physical distancing, is looking at the city in these different sub areas and looking at neighborhoods and wanting to provide that equitable distribution of amenities throughout the whole city, with this ultimate goal of somebody being able to not need a car to go to a park, to go to a facility, and ultimately provide that infrastructure. That's where our active transportation plan comes in as well, to provide that ability to get to these areas in a variety of different ways.
Okay, and I think that I saw Bob with a hand up or a comment. So if you're there, Bob, go ahead. Not hearing from Bob, so okay.
That was a mistake, apparently.
Oh, okay, no problem. All right, and looks like Carrie Applegate, is that right? No, Carrie Howell has to leave early today, so thank you for being in attendance, and we'll talk to you at the next meeting. Okay, back to the questions, if we don't have any more on that. Question number 3, finally, is there anything missing from the draft plan update that would be important to include? And looks like Andrew has the lightning speed with the hand up, so go ahead.
Hi. So when I'm looking at our plan and we're looking at our assets, the more COVID has brought to the forefront is in my business here, we have a significant investment in assets that are not tangible but are software related, and I don't know if this is the right place to address that, but I tried to word this earlier when COVID first started. Is there a language that we can put that refers to the robustness of our software acquisitions to be able to pivot from in-person to not in-person to when we're looking long-term, right? 20 years later, we might not think about the fact that we might want to be online all the time, even though technology is going to head to online. But there's not really anything in here that pertains to assets as far as software, and that the software that we have definitely drives how we function. So this might not be the right place for it, and it might be way too late to bring it up to get a whole new section in. So I don't know. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, your expertise are obviously in that, but you know, something I wouldn't think about at all. So I'm glad you bring it up. But yeah, I'm not sure. I guess maybe Greg could address whether you think it fits in there or not. It does seem like kind of opening a big new envelope, but see if Greg has any input on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I was like, that's a challenging question and a challenging topic to put in at this point.
Yeah, the one place that I'm thinking I could, as a team we could look at together is there is a section that talks about operations and maintenance, and there's some policies and recommendations about essentially using, I think it talks about like using software, using programs for park maintenance, kind of that regular park maintenance and how that's addressed. So, maybe there's something in there that we can look at. But I think beyond that, I just have to think about this more.
I
It's
think
really
we
late.
look. I think we would look at our goals and themes, and are we using, like just phrasing of, latest technology or incorporating, the latest technology. I think we can look at that. I feel like we kind of had that kind of discussion before, but not as much detail as maybe you just outlined. But again, the plan is built to be flexible, not just on what amenities at what park, but also with programming and services that we provide. We're always evolving, and COVID has definitely taught us in the past 13 months how to pivot and be flexible and modify what we do in our business practices and our programming. And the virtual events and the virtual recreational activities that we did for the last previous or beginning 6 months of COVID before we could reopen was something that we had never done, and it was pretty quick that our staff were able to use their brain cells and their smarts to kind of come up with ideas and then use technology to provide services. So I think it's kind of has a place in there, and we'll look to see what that can represent in the plan.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Shauna and Greg. Looks like Bob has his hand up. Is that true, Bob? Yeah, I think you're muted again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think we can be more imaginative in being more multilingual, multiracial, multinational as we redo some of these parks. In signages and images and colors, we're seemingly more neutral than multiracial, ethnic, national, and so forth. I'm not suggesting we go overboard, but I don't think we're as far along as we could be.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. And I mean, we certainly have Spanish speakers. There's like probably our number 2 language. And, there's of course also, Braille and maybe other languages that are kind of third in line after Spanish, but I appreciate that input. Any other comments on number 4? I do have one after everybody else puts in their input. Okay, I'll go ahead and go, and then people can chime in after. I did send a little note earlier to Greg, and he's going to forward my note to you, Shauna, so you can incorporate this in. In chapter 4 in the goals and policies under sustainability, and we're talking about tree selection. It was very brief, and of course that's kind of my niche in life, but I did send a few statements that I think we should incorporate in there. Trees are a very important part of our parks, and and sometimes they kind of just get thought of as like, yeah, of course they're there, but we do need to plan for trees and plan for the future as far as global warming and selecting the correct type of trees. And it takes a lot more than just kind of a little blurb in our element here. So what I'm recommending, this is just kind of a synopsis of what I said, but to actually get a tree inventory done of our parks trees and know what we're working with and be able to know how much it's going to cost us to take care of them and what type of trees we need to plant in the future. And then also the actual locations that we'd want to plant them, because what now we have, it seems like, is just like, hey, Arbor Day comes along and we want to plant some trees, and so they go on the ground, but we're not really thinking like, is it too close to this other one? Is it the right species? Is it going to shade our playgrounds or picnic areas? So we really need to kind of put that language in there, which is going to be provided to you, Shauna, to look to the city and to council to further kind of look at this inventory, and then getting a master tree list for, you know, the drought tolerant, low allergen, high carbon sequestering trees, and then also just coming up with that planning plan like I was talking about. So that's another thing that needs to be expanded, kind of like when we do our, you know, like look at individual parks and getting a plan for them. So just want to incorporate that into the overall plan.
Yeah, thank you. I think we can, Greg did forward that memo to me before this meeting, and I did have a chance to take a quick look at it, and I definitely think we can expand that section, and appreciate your comments on that. I think those are great ideas to work into to expand those policies.
Thanks. Okay, any other comments before we wrap up this discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. You guys can yell out if I'm not seeing you there. Okay, well, we'll take it back to Shauna and to Greg to wrap this section up. See if you guys have any other additional questions or comments for us.
Great, thank you for all the great work and discussion by commissioners, and to our public comment, and for those contributing in the chat. We really appreciate all the input, and as we stated before, everything is recorded, as well as the written chat is recorded, so we'll have these for our records to update our notes as we move forward with any amendments. And I'll see if Shauna has anything else to say, and maybe just remind everybody of our timelines and benchmarks coming up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. I don't have any questions, and just really appreciate all your attention on this plan, and all the great feedback that we've received from your commission, and also from the public. Very appreciative of that. So looking at these key next steps, as mentioned, we'll be going to the city council for a study session on this plan on May 4th. And then we'll return to your commission, where we'll be clear to present, you know, how we've addressed your comments and also other public comments in the plan. So that will be a special meeting May 12th, and then we'll head to the Planning Commission on May 26th, looking for their recommendation to City Council, and then that target date of July 6th for hopefully adoption of the plan and also adoption of the CEQA document. I just wanted to, let's see if I have, there we go. Just wanted to also put this up for the public, the different avenues for providing public comment to us. So keep those comments coming in. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shauna. A great presentation. Again, we really appreciate all the work that you're doing and supporting the staff and the community with this major project. And just a reminder that Open City Hall link is a great mechanism for feedback, and we've had a lot of great response from our community through that, and we are going to keep that open as long as we can for the next few weeks. So we do encourage, sometimes it's easier to put it in City Hall than an email necessarily, so it's in record and it can be downloaded and contained in a different manner. So we are encouraging our community to use Open City Hall and for their comments if they can't attend a meeting, or if you attended and you have other ideas and things you thought about as you kind of look through the plan itself with more detail, that's an opportunity again to get your comments and even questions, input on the Open City Hall. So Rodney, I'll turn it back to you, and I would maybe recommend, we've been meeting for almost 2 hours. It might be good for a 10-minute break, and then we can go into the next business item, if that's okay with the commissioners.
Muted.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it looks like it's about a quarter after, so we'll come back at like 7:25, 7:26 and get started. So we'll take a break. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. Right. Okay, welcome back everyone to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for April 7th. And we are now going to move on to item number 4, which is to receive a background on the potential of instating a city ordinance on the regulation of child play areas within city parks. And this will be a presentation by Greg Avakian. So go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, Chair Thurman, commissioners. Last meeting on April 3rd, March, the March PRC meeting, we talked a little bit about some of the upcoming ordinance amendments and introductions that the city staff are going to be presenting to City Council, and those are occurring next Tuesday. So 2 of those are directly related to our park system, so we wanted to discuss those with you tonight and get some input and some feedback. So as I mentioned, so these are multi-department collaborations, specifically Parks and Rec, Public Works, Parks Maintenance falls under that, as well as our police department and city attorney's office and the city admin offices. So again, a multifaceted approach here. There's 3 topics that are going to be going up to City Council on April 13th. The first one is regarding shopping carts and the unauthorized removal from the establishments or the businesses, and then the abandonment of them throughout the city. So they're tightening up and instituting a proposed amendment regarding shopping carts. The other amendment is the other ordinance is an amendment to the current 12.04.020, which is related to parks and also public works on encroachment. And we did institute a administrative interpretation to this regarding tents and enclosures back in February. And this is now moving forward to get input from City Council on amending this current municipal code to include some additional language. And then last meeting with PRC, we kind of introduced the concept of potentially exploring any concerns about child play areas and the utilization of those areas by say children or families or guardians, in a sense of children utilizing a child play area within the park system. So over the next few slides, we're going to talk about a little bit of the background and history on those and then get your input. So as I mentioned, our administrative interpretation was for the current municipal code 12.04.020. And it's in front of us here as the interpretation that was really originated for encroachment onto sidewalks, park spaces, and city-owned property areas, blocking access or visual barriers. The city staff worked with the city attorney's office to come up with some additional language and do some research of other municipalities and districts that are also incorporating the idea of tents or enclosed structures to be included into the current municipal code related to these. So that language is kind of there in front of you. And I just want to remind our commissioners here that, again, all city parks are closed in the evening from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. No community members are to be in parks during those times. We obviously state that there's no overnight occupation or camping. The only current municipal code about camping is related to open space and our riparian areas, but there is not definitive like tents or camping language besides after hours for our current city managed park system. In addition, city parks must maintain the parks, city staff, I should say, need to maintain parks daily. And sometimes we've had issues with unpermitted structures causing issues with parks maintenance and some damage to turf areas by basically tents or structures that are put in place for long lengths of time. So our goals and objectives of the Parks and Recreation Department, as well as our parks maintenance, is here. Basically, we are focusing on providing safe, inclusive, accessible, and clean parks for our community. Especially during COVID, but mostly in the most recent 6 to 8 months, there's been an influx of tents and enclosed structures in our park system that has caused concern for both staff and community members for their safety and experiencing unsafe and inaccessible conditions for park space. So that's kind of the history of where this is originating from. Tents and other structures or objects erected in parks that are enclosed or create visual barriers to observation of activities inside the tent interfere with the general public use and enjoyment of a park and recreational spaces for their intended purposes. Key things are obstructing open public views in city parks, being erected in a manner and or in locations that physically obstruct or impair the use of the parks equally by all members of our community for their intended purpose, as well as concealing unlawful conduct in parks from public view and regulation. We've had additional correspondence from community members, both verbally as well as emails, concerning their having concerns about their safety and the activities when there's an enclosed structure at a park location. Oops, sorry. Some of these are unlawful activities in parks that have been exacerbated by the erection of the tents or other structures or objects that obstruct those activities from public view include, but not limited to, drug use, alcohol consumption, and potential sexual activities not compatible with public spaces. These have resulted in increased and adverse or aggressive behaviors in the parks, or visually, verbally, or physically threatening interactions among members of the public seeking to utilize the public park systems. As I mentioned before, the staff instituted the interpretive amendment, or I'm sorry, the administrative interpretation of the municipal code for amendment. Back in February 21, we initiated a 10-day educational outreach by posting the notifications at all our parks within the city limits, and started doing outreach for anybody that was utilizing enclosed structures or tents in the park areas, most notably Mitchell Park, Santa Rosa Park, and Meadow Park, and Emerson Park were the key areas that staff had formal interactions, but postings were put up at all city managed park systems. Part of those educational outreach was to make contact with our city staff and our CAT teams, the community action teams, along with our social service worker, John Clevens, to offer up any services that may need for that population that may be using the tents in the park spaces. That includes our partners at Transitions Mental Health, as well as our San Luis Obispo County social services opportunities. Additionally, staff continue to have daily contact as part of our EOC operations system with the 40 Prado Homeless Center. And this was to provide updates on what's available and what resources and accommodations for anybody in need of care or need of services. Currently, over the last 6 months, and this is again relevant right now since February, but we are focusing on the timeline here, that 40 Prado was averaging anywhere from 10 to 20 available beds per night. During some of the more poor weather or extreme heat, those do change when they do the warming center and cooling centers. However, even today's check-in with our liaison, there was 8 to 13 beds available as of yesterday. So along with that, city staff worked with CapSlow to set up and pattern a safe parking program over at the railroad station parking area. And that was originated, by the county back in early part of COVID and over summer. That was used at the SLO Vets Hall very successfully. So that was the model that city staff and CapSlow were modeling after. And they also have social service workers and staff available to have touch points with anybody in need for services. And again, the location is at the southern end of the railroad parking area, kind of closest towards the Railroad Museum and Miners, kind of that section of that parking lot. And that also included restrooms, hand washing stations, and video surveillance. And as well, I mentioned that the CapSlow staff are there in the beginning of the evening, and I believe they're also there at the end of the day, in the morning time, to provide any services and touch points with the community that needs safe parking and any resources with that. Okay, let's see if I can, oops, not working. Oh, there we go. Okay, so go back to that real quick. So with the ordinance for amendment to the municipal code, again, it's focusing on adding language, and this is pretty much the language that our city attorney's office is utilizing at this point for inclusion, and they'll be presenting this to City Council next Tuesday. For tonight, we wanted to get some feedback really on the concept of any language or direction focusing on the child play areas such as playgrounds. So for tonight, we're looking for the recommendation from PRC to provide direction to staff to then provide City Council on whether and in what form to proceed with any regulation of child play areas within city parks, including potential limitation of use of designated child play areas based on age or the intended purpose of play equipment in those areas. Some background that brought this to fruition at this point. At times, we've had adverse adult activities in and immediately around the play equipment areas, including public intoxication, open alcohol containers, smoking, verbally intimidating or threatening behaviors directed towards children and their attendant adults have acted as a deterrent to intended use of the play areas by children. And this is not necessarily specific to any one park location. We've had community feedback through direct contact to Parks and Rec staff, our Parks maintenance staff, as well as city administration based around these concerns. The type of concern is by no means unique, as I mentioned, to San Luis Obispo and a variety of other jurisdictions. And what we mean by that is cities, districts, and county kind of Parks and Rec and municipalities have addressed the concern through restrictions on access to such child play areas within parks to people in the age group for which specific amenities are designed and their attendant adult caregivers. So under such a system, using the city playground amenities, equipment, or facilities not in accordance with their design and or its intended use is prohibited, and age requirement signage is posted on specific age-based playground structures according to product safety guidelines. So for an example, our current Sinsheimer playground structures and play areas have signs posted because there's two different designs and for younger age as well as older age group for the play amenities. So some examples of our signage currently there is more based on the use of the amenity, not necessarily the age requirement for being at the child play area itself. Okay, so what we're looking for is an example here. So basically staff, and that's again the multitude of variety of different staff, departments and divisions within the city, in collaboration with the city's attorney's office, are investigating the potential for proposing a new ordinance to include the following language to ensure safe and appropriate use of playground amenities for children and families. So this is a current draft of an example that city attorneys are going to present to city council, and also again based off of your feedback tonight. So an example is no person over the age of 12 years old other than a parent or guardian, babysitter, caretaker, or other designee of a parent or guardian having sole or joint supervisory responsibility over a child shall visit, frequent, or be present in an area within a park or recreational facility that has been designated and posted as a children's play area. So I'll leave this up for a little bit as I kind of talk through this. This is, again, wordsmithing, but also it's relevant. A lot of our parks are designed to be inclusive and to blend, you know, from a picnic area, barbecue area, or restroom area and lawn area into a child's play area. Many of our park systems currently, the playgrounds and child play areas are bordered with a curbing or a containment for their landing zones. And I believe what the goal of this is, when we mention facility has been designated or posted as a children's play area or present within it, would be really in those boundaries of what we consider the play area itself, not the park, not the benches near it, but really the play area itself. So kind of use that as a lens as we kind of move into some of the questions. So I'll come back to that slide. I know that that's more relevant maybe for you guys to again look at that language. So again, our goal tonight is to have the commissioners provide a recommendation, or I'm sorry, provide direction to staff and city council on whether and in what form to proceed with regulation of child play areas within the city parks, including potential limitation of use of designated child play areas based on age or intended purpose of play equipment in the area. And some questions to help prompt is really we want to get some feedback on is the modify the example ordinance as proposed with some alternative language. Another option or recommendation can be do not pursue inclusion of child play area ordinance. Or a third option is provide further direction to staff regarding the ordinances, including further public outreach, further research, and or further advisory body engagement, and reconvene to the PRC as well as city council at a later date. So with that, I think I'll go back to this language here, and I would like to open it up to questions from the commission on some of the background or objectives with this. And then obviously we're here for public comment as well, and then return back to commission for discussion on the questions themselves on providing staff direction as we can formalize some written communication to city council for the Tuesday meeting next week. According to my screen, I believe, again, Commissioner Weber has first go.
Awesome. I like it. I like the posture of where we're headed here. When I get to language that has been designated and posted as a children's area, are we posted at every area? Is this something that I see that picture is great. Do we have those at every?
Yeah.
We have those at every playground.
So those pictures right there, that's really specific to the amenity itself. So for example, the Sinsheimer playground, there's a small section designed and manufactured for age group 2 to 5,
Sure.
while the other one is a little more, as you know, it's got the synthetic turf slides and the larger amenities. Those are designed for 5 to 12 years old. Obviously, we have all probably seen at some point as we walk through there, older age groups utilizing some of the play structures, and it's more about a safety concern of physical as well as any risk. You know, these are designed mainly for the amenities were designed for that age group for weight, size, and use, not necessarily for the boundary of the park or the playground area, based off of what we're kind of looking at as far as the staff direction is who's appropriate to be in those areas, and should you be in those areas without children? Is
Sure,
kind of
sure, understood. My back up a little bit farther is if it's posted, we would have to have these at every park. That is like, here's the age. Do we have a budget for that, or is that something that already exists? I see that this is at Sinsheimer. I just want to make sure that we have that everywhere. Or
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So I think if I go to the next.
So Greg, if I can cut in, those are actually recommendations and posted by the actual company. So those are required for every playground site as a part of like the playground inspection. So those are out at every facility.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Puts us in a great spot.
Those are specific. Yeah. Those are specific to the play structure themselves. This is more of the language that would either be posted or part of not all municipal codes are posted everywhere, but we would have something at an entrance to a park, or obviously educate our community. Anything new, we would definitely make an effort to put these out as a communication tool. This is more of the language, I believe, that would be posted at any child play areas based off of recommendations from both you as commissioners and city council. Okay, I see Rick Blair as our number next up. I don't know if he leapfrogged anybody, but I apologize if he did.
Well, I think I'm like fourth in line.
I think Carrie might have been
was next. If you want to go.
Maybe I should have Jeff be our captain on this, but from my video screen, it pops up as that. So.
Yeah, Carrie, let's hear it.
Okay. I do like it. I get a little wary of the no person. I feel like some people feel like their rights are being infringed upon, whatever. I'm thinking of when you go to Arizona and the seatbelt sign says click it or click it or it's the law, like wear your seatbelt. And California's sign is what is their seatbelt sign? It's like really positive and sweet, and it's like I don't know, I forget. But it just was a stark difference in language, but with the same message. And so I don't know if there's a more kind of positive way to say something along the lines of, please be considerate that this park is for children of this intended age. And I think the no person is making me hesitate, even though I know that's the message we're trying to get across.
Yeah, I think I'll address that. I think how we promote and market is different than a municipal code. Municipal code is probably going to be more direct and specific, because that is a legal definition, city attorney's interpretation, and they're going to utilize the language what they believe is the most pertinent to enforce. How we market or promote or put signage in a park to educate can be different. So if that's a concern, that could be something that we could put into the comments of, this might be the municipal code. However, how we promote or educate or provide guidance to the community on what that means can be in softer language. Okay. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and if everyone else disagrees with me, I hear you, and I don't have a hard line on it. If we think that that's the best way to communicate with the community and that's what people will respond to the most. But then my other question was, to what is the consequence of violating this code and who's in charge of enforcing it.
Yeah, that would be city staff if it's parks maintenance, police department, or any of our parks and rec staff would enforce. And certain staff positions have citation ability, others don't, and that would just be something that would be reported out to, much like if somebody was drinking or smoking or doing something else illicit in the park, that would be reported as a standard procedure.
And it would maybe get would you say a citation, like a fine?
If the person doesn't move or leave the area, that's up to the enforcing staff that's currently involved. There are certain municipal codes that have fines associated to them. That's something I think the city council would be able to advise on. I don't have that information at this time.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm going to go with Bob Spector, and then Adam, and then Rick. So Commissioner or Vice Chair Spector?
Yes, okay. I guess my own bias is as a guy who grew up on an inner city playground where all the equipment was covered by teenagers, smoking, drinking, whatever. So, but it's a shame this thing is necessary. But I'm also the guy who spoke an hour ago about a core value of public health and safety. It's clear that 5 years from now, this won't even be an issue. Of course we would do this. Public health and safety would demand it. I don't have a lot of sympathy for 17-year-olds that are on the teeter-totter. This makes perfect sense. People smarter than me can do the wordsmithing on this, but it's clear this is just necessary. It's a good idea. And certainly if I were a young parent with kids, I'd be 1,000% in favor of this. So I support it wholeheartedly.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Commissioner Stowe.
Okay, let's see. First of all, I don't honestly believe that the PRC should be involved at all in this sort of policymaking. I think we should be directing the Parks and Rec Department as to what we believe the best course of action is as far as development. But I think policymaking is outside the parameters of this particular commission. That being said, I understand the intent. I am a parent with a young kid and I go to playgrounds quite often. But I think the signage is great. The designated for 5 to 12 years old, wonderful. I think that should be at every playground. But I really don't like banning usage, especially not through a policy that I don't think we have any business putting in place. Yes, it can be intended for certain age groups, but I don't see how you designate certain areas based on age or physical capability or race or religion or any sort of criteria. So I understand the intent. I like the signage that's put up on the screen there, but I don't think we have any business making a policy here.
So what I've kind of heard a couple things, and we'll go to Rick in a second, is again, if you look at this, as Devin mentioned, these are manufacturer recommendations by age. It probably has to do a lot with the weight and construction and the design itself. We're talking more about the area itself. And if it's an age, if the age part of it is a potential roadblock for the commission, is there other language that can be used that meets the same idea? Because I think.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is more. Sorry, Greg, I didn't interrupt you. I guess what I'm getting at more is we can design equipment for whatever age group, but it's a reasonably foreseeable use that weight limits outside of what is recommended will be used. And that needs to be taken into account. And as far as drinking and smoking in public, there are public policies that deal with that, and police can be called and citations can be issued. I don't know if that's necessarily a Parks and Recreation thing. Anyway, I'm done.
No, thank you for that. I was just going to clarify that it might not, if you look at this first line, if the age is being a challenge for you, is there other language in here about basically anybody of an adult age or anybody who's in a child's play area without a child? is that kind of the second half of this, right? And I know Commissioner Applegate was concerned about the starkness or the language in the beginning, how it starts off, but is the concept of a person being in a child's play area without a child a concern? And if that's kind of another lens to look at, that might be something that you're looking at, Commissioner Stowe, as far as language. Commissioner Blair.
Yeah, my view on it is I like it. I think it's shown that it's necessary. It's unfortunate that it's necessary, but it certainly appears that it is. There are age restrictions on what young people are allowed to do. So giving young people some rights that older people don't have doesn't necessarily strike me as a bad thing. The one kind of gray area I'm wondering about, if you guys have thought about this, is that if an older sibling, say 15, 16, 17-year-old, is caring for a younger sibling, so they're in a capacity of being the guardian, is that person allowed to play on the equipment with that younger child?
So I think to address that question, I think you got to really focus on this after the comma right here, and I think the language, again, city staff right now are open for discussion. This is something that we're taking to council for other advisement. But again, if you're a babysitter, caretaker, designee in those language, are you the older brother, uncle? Are you an older cousin? That would count. So I think this statement here might be misleading if I'm reading it if you're 12 years old, if you're older than 12 and you're there by yourself, that's the red flag. But if you're 17 but you're there with your 8-year-old brother or nephew or cousin, I think is what you're kind of referring to, something of that, as a caretaker, you would have the right to be in the child's play area because you're overseeing them as a caretaker, guardian, or babysitter kind of role. That's, I think, what the intention of their example statement here is about. Does that help?
Yeah, and to just take it to that last step is if they're climbing on the equipment because they're playing with that younger child, that's acceptable.
I think that would just only go back to this previous slide. If the manufacturer's recommendation that it's not, then we post these. As Devin said, not all of our playground equipment have these signs because they might be designed for a older age and weight bearing that's above the 5 to 12-year-old groups. And that would be something that we would work with the manufacturer or the design of the playground itself to make sure that whatever sign is recommended by the manufacturer is posted, and either if it contradicts something, that it has to have a separate signage to be particularly or specific to that playground set. Looks like Commissioner Applegate and then Chair Thurman. I don't know if you also have.
I think he was before me.
Hand up. Yes, it looks.
I'll go ahead. Yeah, what Adam said did kind of, I hadn't really thought about it, but it may be a little bit out of our duties. to decide on this. And you know, like when you guys did the interpretation about the tints, you kind of gave us a little information, but there wasn't really a lot of input from us. I mean, I think it was something that you're kind of just saying, hey, it's already on the books, and we're just going to kind of make a director's interpretation. But I think just to address what you're saying here, you know, a lot of people have been kind of concentrating on like a older kid playing on equipment, which may be a problem, but I don't think that's really the intent of this proposed ordinance. It's more about adults maybe lurking around that might have bad intentions. And so I think that's probably what we need to look at it from, you know, that focus. And I also think if you're going to post something, it shouldn't be all, I know you have to have it in kind of like ordinance language, but this is a huge long run-on sentence. I think it could get tightened up and make a little bit more just kind of user-friendly. And maybe that is something that you would do, like you said, has the outreach sign, and then what's on the books is maybe a little bit more in depth. But yeah, I would be fine with staff going forward with whatever you thought appropriate and kind of leave us out of it. But if we do need to make a decision, I'm prepared. That's all I have.
Commissioner Applegate, and then I'll go back to the questions on the next slide. But
so maybe what we can advise on is like the language around the advertisement of the new rule. Like maybe your sign really big just says, please respect this space for children. And then there's this small penal code underneath that backs up what that means, that if you want more information on what that is. Because I think, like someone said earlier, parents would appreciate that language. I think that if I surveyed all my preschool families tomorrow as they dropped off their children, they'd all say yes, yes, yes to that. And I can if you want me to. But I just feel like I would also see those teenagers coming in at night and seeing that sign and saying no person under the age of 12 and being like, oh, so what? And jumping on equipment. So I don't know. Maybe we don't have a role in the penal code part of it, but the advertising part of it, maybe we can talk about. Oh, and I know, I'm sorry, I was also going to mention the sign with the age limit. From my research, if I remember right, when we were picking out a structure for our own program, it's also like a lawsuit thing. They're avoiding, if children get hurt on their equipment outside of the age range they designated it for, they can say, look, we posted signage that said that was what it was for, so we're not liable if you got hurt on our stuff at that age. I think that was also part of it.
That makes complete sense, and that's where the manufacturer recommendations, we follow those guidelines for any postings on the equipment. Going back to the question, I kind of want to just remind our commission that you're an advisory body. You provide advice, and that includes budget and policy direction. Tonight is not a decision to say yes or no. It is a answer these questions. And the council itself obviously makes the hard decision. The role of the advisory bodies is to work with staff and advise on, again, any policy direction, fee structures, budget, project development, as you all are very well aware, but it does include some policy. So sometimes it's not comfortable and sometimes it is comfortable. This goal tonight is to get feedback from the staff in a variety of viewpoints. That's what's nice about having an advisory body makeup of that we have with this commission. And all it is a recommendation, or I'm sorry, not a recommendation, a comment and feedback direction from the PRC to staff to then provide to City Council. Again, city council might have a different view. This is again, response from community input and community outreach that we have received, mostly unsolicited, but it is a concern that our community has, and therefore we are here to, as staff, to address that and bring it to you as an advisory body for your recommendation on language or pursuing this. Again, city council is the final decision maker on that. So with that, I do see Vice Chair Spector.
Yes. First of all, I do think it's our purview to chime in on this, so I welcome the opportunity to do that. I know we're not voting on anything. I would ask you and staff to re-examine the issue of age 12. The number 12 is arbitrary. It came from one manufacturer for a variety of legal and other reasons. If it said age 13, we would not be aghast and blow the policy out of the water. So I'm not sure what the magic age is, or if we need to say it or whatever, but I think that's a key thing that we can look at. I think it's a reasonable position for us to take, that we don't want everyone and their uncle all over the equipment all the time. So it's just a question of how we word it and so forth. But I'm not hung up on age 12 because that was one manufacturer. You could go to another manufacturer and say you want it for 210 pounds or age 15 or however you want to do it. So I think we need to look at that. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll see if I can do a little summary here. So again, the intent of bringing this forward to City Council for their recommendation is we have concerns of adult age community members utilizing child play areas without children with them, not accompanied by a child. And it sounds, again, from, I don't know, I want to say majority, but a few of the commissioners at this point that the age is it's hard. It's a little hard to feel good, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. To feel good about that utilizing a specific age, other than a manufacturer. That's different. To be on the structure itself is a manufacturer recommendation. This is more about being present in the area, child play area. And if you're not a parent, guardian, babysitter, or caretaker or other designee, should you be in this play area that is designed for children? If I could summarize a little bit that way. So along with that, we're just, again, focusing on, again, not a vote. This is really about just providing some more direction for staff to then be able to advise City Council, because they will ask city staff, again, have we brought this to the Parks and Rec Commission, as your purview is to advise city staff on Parks and Rec programs and facilities. So.
Well, Greg, I do just want to make a comment before we decide which way we're going to go. Yeah, and it's not like I feel like maybe some commissioners are getting caught up in the age, but I don't feel like we're going to have a police officer there monitoring, exactly checking IDs and things like that. So, I mean, it's there to kind of put the seed in people's minds that, like, hey, if you're a teenager or older, that you shouldn't really be playing on this stuff. So, I don't know that 12 is really going to like offend a bunch of people necessarily. If you're like 13 and you're playing with your little brother, I don't think it's probably going to be an issue with anyone really. But so that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think sometimes we kind of get in the weeds about certain things, not to say that people don't have good points, but So that's kind of my thought on it. I think that what Carrie said was that, you know, this language, I mean, as far as being on the books, it does cover the whole gamut of what you're trying to address. And then the actual signage that goes up could be, like you said, you know, kind of have that softer language, but then actually, you know, a lot of times, like, I don't know, say like a parking sign will say per, you know, ordinance such and such, or you could have it in smaller font below and just have the whole detail of this. So then you can kind of get attention with the basic and then put the ordinance below. So I don't really have a problem with the wording of it to go into the ordinance on paper, you know, within the city's ordinances. So we'll just check in with everybody else and see if we can come up with the direction for you guys. Looks like Carrie does have a hand up.
Yeah.
I just want to try something out on you.
Okay.
Would it be too big of a deal if it just started, and I haven't figured out the end, to exclude the people who shouldn't be under this, but like Bob said, people smarter than me can figure that part out. But if it started that the space is for children and the following persons, and it lists your whole list there, and then your last part, people outside these roles shall not, whatever. It does take the age out. Is children too vague? I don't know.
So what I'm hearing is you're saying, you know, this play area or space is for the following person's enjoyment. Anyone other than, and then you go through this list, is prohibited, basically.
Yeah.
As per, so you're getting rid of this, yeah.
Or as per code, blah, 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 and you can reference
yeah.
for legal.
Yeah.
And we are writing, I mean, this would be the code, correct, Greg? This long sentence.
So yeah, so this is code language here. Again, right. Like what Commissioner Applegate is stating is more of like what kind of signage. That again, that's after the fact. Like right now, I think what we're looking for here is, do you believe that there should be some inclusion of an ordinance in a child play area? That's number 2. You know, do or do not. Currently, we're talking about the language of the ordinance for number 1. And obviously, if you feel that this is not vetted out or a need at this point, that maybe more research needs to be conducted, that's your third option. So, or a fourth can just be anything else that you might have. They're just prompts for us to kind of get to a conclusion for tonight of recommendation for staff to provide input and feedback to City Council.
Right. I think, you know, we did this once before, and unfortunately we also had the public we're trying to wordsmith. So I don't want to wordsmith in real time here. I think that we should.
I think
you guys
are correct. You're correct, Chair Thurman. I think it's kind of yes, no to these questions, right?
Right.
Should we modify the example ordinance? And we've heard some examples provided by commissioners tonight. Yes or no to pursue inclusion of this ordinance for a child play area, or I guess I said or provide. You can provide further direction for staff to pursue additional research and public outreach. So yeah, the intent tonight is not to reword and wordsmith and craft. I think it's more about getting the feedback like we did here on opening statement. It sounds like there's concerns about the age being listed as a definitive age. Is there another language that can be used? It sounds like the second half of this has been majority so far I've heard, again, speak up if you like, are comfortable with everything from other than a parent all the way down to the last sentence here. Whoops. But there seems to be a little hang up on the age requirement at this point. So.
Right.
Okay.
There's
Commissioner Weber.
Can you jump to the questions real quick again, Greg?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna run down as far as modifying the example. I wouldn't weigh in on a legal code thing. I think it's fine there. I think the age 12, there has to be a delineation if you're gonna write a code over, under. You can't have ambiguous language in a code. So like I would leave that up to the council and to pursue. I definitely think it's needed, and I definitely think that the PRC should be involved in what the public sees. I think that's important, and I think that we would probably just naturally be involved with that. So I don't think that that's too much of a stretch.
Okay. Do you have another comment?
Thank you.
Carrie?
It would be interesting to get community feedback from those folks who were concerned if this met the needs that they're seeking for safety in their parks that they frequent. So maybe some more research.
Okay.
Okay. Keep in mind again that this is going to council for, again, public comment and council. It's a business item. This is one of the other two, the two ordinances plus this child area discussion, and that's an opportunity for the community to have their forum as
Okay,
well.
maybe then that's fine.
But again, we put this here for a reason. So again, number 3 is definitely listed there if you feel it needs to have additional more direction and some additional answers to pursue. It's there.
Okay.
Looks like Rick has a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what I raised was probably more of a corner case. I'm perfectly fine going forward with what you've proposed. I agree with Andrew that I won't try to guess at what legal experts would put into code, and so I have no problem going forward.
Okay. Well, let's just quickly for a show of hands so we can kind of get through the rest of this. Who would be in favor of recommending as written? Just raise your hands if you are.
Actually, sorry to cut you off. It's important that this is not a vote.
I understand.
So I understand it might be a practical process, but I do, since we are in a public forum, this is not a vote, and I would not want commissioners to be put in that position at this point. I think it is probably best to go through each commissioner and say, do you choose 1, 2, or 3?
Okay.
And that's kind of what Commissioner Weber and Blair were kind of going for now. That's my recommendation for you,
Sounds
Chair Thurman.
Sounds like we have heard from those two gentlemen, and so Carrie, would you like to go next?
3.
3. Okay. Did you get that, Greg?
Yes.
And Bob, would you like to go?
I'm in favor of doing this, and we can, I've already been wordsmithing, but I'll email it, but I think we can come up with a less intrusive wording that says who this playground is for. That'll get around the age thing and everything else, but we should do it.
Okay. Adam, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I'd go with number 2.
Okay. Okay. And then it looks like I am the last person here, and I think I would go with I guess number 1, but basically present it to council as written. Does that fulfill
Yes,
our requirement?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Again, the purpose of this was to get feedback and provide some direction. So, to summarize again from the commission, we have a majority that are looking to propose that this moves forward to city council, potentially with some modified language based around the age requirement, but understand that city attorneys and liability, the liability lens will really dictate what that language is. We have one commissioner as a do not pursue and another commissioner to pursue additional research and outreach to kind of gather some more content. And that's what we'll summarize in a memo to council. And then on Tuesday night, that'll be presented to them as part of a package of ordinance amendments and updates from the shopping cart to the tent. We'll call it the tent ordinance, but the encroachment ordinance, the shopping cart ordinance, and the basically direction of pursuing. Again, there's not an ordinance that's written and will not be presented to council as an ordinance, but as an idea of this is a concern, and here's an example language, much like we did for you tonight, to council. We thank you for some hard decisions, and it's not always fun, but that's part of the role for our advisory groups, is to help staff with policy. So we thank you very much. Shifting gears, if we're ready to move on, I'd like to invite Lindsay Stevenson to talk a little bit briefly on kind of her divisions that she oversees and some updates for the commissioners, and then we'll have Devin Highfield do his updates, and I'll throw in a couple little ones at the end, and then we can move on to your staff reports. So
Hi all.
I'll turn it over to Lindsay.
Yeah, hello. I'm just going to do some high flyovers because I know it's getting late. We've been on this meeting for 3 hours, but I just wanted to just bring your quick attention to some of the things that has been busy in the programming world as we are starting to see some safe reopening guidance from the state and from county health. This week we have the spring break sports camps happening at Meadow Park. This year, the youth services spring break camp did not happen, as we are quickly getting ready for our summer planning and returning to a pretty robust summer program as we did last year. That was all day. We'll be doing the same, and hopefully some of the guidelines are starting to allow us to maybe even use the pool for some field trip action. So we took our sports clinics and they mobilized and have a great program, like I mentioned, at Meadow Park, Monday through Friday through the lunch hour every day this week. Tales and Trails is happening right now in Meadow Park, and that's working with community services and the SLO County Library. We have chosen 3 books with the guidance from the children's librarian to choose 3 different parks for April, May, and June. And it's taking you on a walking trail as you read a laminated page by page through the park, and it's really great. The first one this month in April is a local author and illustrator that's over at Meadow Park. So Meadow Park will be April. May there'll be a book for Duval, and then our final park will be Islay Park in June. And we've got great feedback so far. I ran into some folks as I was walking my dog through Meadow, and they were just loving it with their families as they were walking through the park in the evening. Another thing we're doing with our community services is the Best of SLO photo contest. it's a photo contest that's aimed at 2 different age groups, our under 12 and then 13 and older for adults. And it's, what does slow mean to you? What are the best things in slow? And we've gotten some great submissions through photography. And we will end that contest April 30th. Softball, Carrie mentioned that, begins May 3rd. So far, we have 40 teams, and talking to Chris Woods today, he's expecting more to be signing up in the next few weeks. So right now, 40 teams, and May 3rd, we're bringing it back. So super excited for that. And contract classes also starts our summer registration May 3rd, and we've got a lot of new classes coming in. Kevin Rux is doing an amazing job bringing in some new instructors that we've never seen before, and also targeting some of the younger age groups that we've had a lot of younger families saying that they'd like to see more inclusivity for the under 5 age group. So we've got a lot of that we're doing for summer as well. And then on to youth services. Like I said, Summer Fun Day Camp registration starts on Monday, April 12th. So we'll be programming 7 weeks this summer, starting June 21st, and then our last day would be August 13th. We'll take a week off before school starts again in the fall. And with that, fall registration and fall curriculum planning is beginning, and we will have registration the entire month of May. And we're working with the school districts right now, going out for Kinder Roundup after spring break. So we will physically be at each school site working with the new families that are coming into the school district. And then just real quick on public art, this is very new, but we have something planning with Public Works. They will, as Farmers Market is slated to come back May 6th, it's going to be a smaller, shorter farmers market that'll just be including the farmers. So we are going to be employing some public safety barricades that are mobile, that will be delineating where the market ends. And with that, they're going to ask for some public art to brand these mobile barricades. And so it'll be similar to what we did with our parking kiosks, with the digital wraps that we did with branding of downtown, with the Mission and Louis store and the cultural diversity banners that we also have that hang in downtown. So that's going to be something we're working on as well. So that's the programming, youth services, sports, and public art side. And now I'm sure Devin has a lot to add. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. I'll keep mine brief as well. So the aquatics program, they're off and running with planning for the summer, starting with lifeguard training. They're having 2 sessions of lifeguard training, both in March and April. So we're going to be seeing a lot of new faces getting certified for lifeguarding. They're also busy planning summer. And with that, we actually have planned special recreational swim pod areas to incorporate this year, which is going to be really great. On the facility side of things, with the updated restrictions, tiers, and safety guidelines, youth sports has returned for league play, allowing at least 1 match per team per day under the requirements. The outdoor adult uses have started to occur again, with league play also resuming on that front. We've also currently allowed outdoor gatherings to be permitted again, both within the city and at our special event locations such as the Jack House. While we continue to hire additional staff, we have not allowed any indoor uses to occur, but we do plan on opening those up pretty shortly. Golf course continues to be an amazing success. A lot of really big numbers throughout the day. Super busy. I just was speaking to the coordinator today, and she said there was only about 1 or 2 hours of downtime throughout the entire day, which is really great. We have extended the hours from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on a daily basis. And we do look forward to seeing all of our commissioners out there for our next night disc golf, which is happening on Tuesday, April 13th. We hope to see all y'all out there just so you can see what alternative programming that we can actually program on the golf course. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. Thanks.
Fantastic updates. Thank you very much, Devin and Lindsay. A couple other just little tidbits. Ranger Service continues to work at Meosi. They are getting some collateral together to do a virtual ribbon cutting and kind of grand opening in the coming weeks. We're expecting again end of April to have some of our signage delivered and ready to open up portions of Meosi Trail. A new boardwalk was installed at South Hills just about a week and a half ago in an area that was traditionally muddy for my 20 plus years of living here and was always a bit of a hazard. And now that the cattle are no longer in that zone of property, they had an opportunity to build a nice, beautiful boardwalk to preserve the trail area as well as the flora around it. So we had a lot of people going off trail to get around the water saturation. So this will help protect the natural environment over there as well. And again, with the fire that had the burn scar, I forget if that was September. I forget what time of year already. It's been a blur with COVID, but we've had some amazing regrowth and flowers and greenery around the South Hills, which has been nice to see that recover. A couple other items that are coming up for projects. The Laguna Lake dredging pilot program is going to council for recommendation to go out for an RFP. So hoping to see that come to fruition. That was put on hold during the COVID pandemic to save financial money based off of economic recovery. And now that we are reemerging out of this, little by little, that'll go back up to council for, again, an RFP for Laguna Lake dredging as a pilot program. We also have Meadow Park and Exposition Park area pathways that will get redone. And that's also a project that will be coming up for City Council to provide guidance on. And then really staff as a whole, besides everything else that Devin and Lindsay were talking about, behind the scenes, Jeff, Aaliyah, and the administration of Parks and Rec have been working on budgets and preparing for the 21-23 financial plan. And we have very good news moving forward as it gets closer to council adoption, with a strong focus on staffing and programming and some of the CIP projects that we have already in line, which you're aware of, with North Broad Street and some of the new development areas moving forward in our CIP plan. So more information to come at probably the next meeting, if not in June, about the progress of the budget and what that means for Parks and Rec as a whole with our department. And with that, I will turn it over back to Chair Thurman if there's any questions for staff. Otherwise, I will just make one comment and about our liaison groups. We are, even though we have a full commission now, we are going to keep your assignments through the end of June, and over summer we will reevaluate and redistribute any needs for new points of contact or kind of shuffle the deck on who's the representatives for those groups. So back to you, Chair Thurman.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Real quick, we'll just see if anybody has any questions for Greg, and then we can move into subcommittee reports. Looks like no questions. So we'll go ahead and go into subcommittee reports. So adult and senior programming, Mr. Spector, I assume nothing from you, but go ahead and chime in. It looks like you're on mute right now.
Yeah, I'm on mute. Actually, there is a report.
Okay, cool.
There was a Zoom meeting today of the board, and Greg and Lindsay and David Sutherland were on to bring them up to date. First is their letter of agreement between the senior center and us is up this June, and they're suggested, given as they're coming out of the COVID situation, is to have a 2-year agreement. And I think they're sort of predisposed to doing that, although they would want and need to increase their subsidy from $3,000 to something more. And I guess the group will be writing to Greg shortly as to what and why and how. On the bad news front or whatever, they have received notice that the center will not be able to open until maybe late summer because it falls into the same category as a community center. So they're going to have to wait to figure that out. And at the same time, they'll be getting guidelines on what kind of food they can make, and does it have to be in sealed containers? Will people have to have proof of vaccines and so forth? So there's a lot of questions yet to be done. They are aware that the pickleball courts are going to be built there, and that's being met with mixed reactions. The number one concern is the loss. Will they lose parking for people coming to play pickleball? Will it be an attractive feature for the center or not? People just don't know. But I think there are other people who think it'll be great, and people in the neighborhood will be able to play. So they're doing well, to their credit. They're concerned that it's been more than a year that they've not really been able to meet and program. They don't know what of their groups will continue, what have fallen through the cracks, and so forth. So I think it'll be a time, the next 3 months, of sort of great activity and meetings and further reassessing of what recovery looks like. So, but it was a really good meeting today, and I think they feel very positive about the relationship between Parks and Rec and them. So it's certainly not an adversarial relationship. So that's good. So it was good to see everyone in that group again in this way. That's it. That's my report.
All right, thanks, Bob. It's good to hear those guys are getting back online. So I'm sure things will evolve and maybe change as far as those limitations. Okay, so Mr. Stowe, do you have anything for us?
Not a thing.
Okay, well, hopefully soon. Mr. Weber.
I had some issues with my email notifications, so I was not at the last the ATC meeting. Greg was there. Obviously, we heard some of that, and so they gave their presentation about the blueprint for the future, and they gave their input that we already heard, and they also we went over the 2021-2022 paving plan and gave their input on that, much like we would, and then they also provided information on the 2021 to 2023 plan as well. So again, I've reset all my emails up to get email notification, but they've been changing their meetings around a lot like we have. So I missed this last one, unfortunately. So, but that was right. according to the agenda and what Greg has spoken, that is what happened.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, it looks like they've been doing good work according to what we saw tonight. So, okay, Commissioner Applegate, anything for us?
No additions from what Devin and Lindsay already reported.
Okay, cool. And let me see, do you have any assignment, Mr. Blair? Doesn't look like it. Is that correct?
No, I am assignment free.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Oh, Rodney, I wanted to say one thing. Almost 2 years ago to this day, Adam and I did our swearing in. Like, oh. I just looked. It was like the 4th or the 3rd of April, 2 years ago.
Well,
so congratulations, brother.
you hung in. So
halfway there.
Halfway there. All right, cool. And then finally, tree committee. I was not in attendance this last meeting, but on the agenda was only tree removal application. So nothing as far as any programming goes. So that is all I have. Are there any final comments before we close the meeting? Okay.
Just thanks to Parks and Rec. Thanks to Parks and Rec staff for all the programming they've been doing during COVID, because I know families have really appreciated everything that's been still going on.
Yeah,
it's our pleasure. Lots of challenges, but the staff have been really enjoying being involved, and we're feeling we're almost back to normal, but we're not even close, but we feel a little bit more. Yeah. And just a reminder, a special meeting, it's not going to be May 5th, it'll be May 12th. So we'll be pushing to the second Wednesday in May, based around the City Council presentation of the blueprint. That way we can actually have productive content turned around and discussion for May 12th,
Okay.
just as a reminder.
Perfect. All right. Well, sounds like that's a wrap. I think we put in our time tonight, so appreciate everybody sticking with us. We'll adjourn to the next meeting, like Greg said, May 12th at 5:30 via webinar. So thanks everyone. Thanks Jeff for handling the controls. We'll see
Thank
y'all
you.
later.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.